It's Toronto, and it's a summer afternoon, sometime in the late 1940s. It's hot. It's got the kind of heat that hangs in the air and slows everything down, except for the game. There's a crowd gathered at the ballpark. Not massive, but enough to feel like something's happening. People are leaning forward in their seats, trying to make sense of what they're watching, because this doesn't look like the baseball they're used to. The players move differently. The pace feels quicker, looser. There's a rhythm to it that's hard to explain, but impossible to ignore. On the field are two teams most of the city has never seen before. Black players, professionals, some of the best talent in the world, even if they're not allowed to play in leagues that claim to be the best. For a lot of people in the stands, this is their first time seeing baseball played like this, and they don't know it yet. But they're watching something that will be rewritten into history. Because decades later, games like this one will be officially recognized as Major League Baseball, which means something strange happened. One of the first Major League games this city ever saw, that was played in Toronto long before the Blue Jays existed, was played by black people. And somehow, almost nobody remembers it.
Hello?
Hey Adam, guess what? It's opening day.
Of course you're talking about baseball.
No, but seriously, like today. The Blue Jays are playing. The dome's probably open. People are already down there drinking at 11 a.m. pretending it's summer.
Yeah, the city does feel different on opening day. It's like everyone collectively decides winter didn't happen. And then you look out the window and you suddenly remember that it did happen, but let's be positive on this day.
Exactly. It always feels like this is the start of baseball in Toronto.
I mean, for most people, it is. 1977, Blue Jays. That's the origin story. That's the thing everyone knows.
Right. But that's also kind of the problem, because it makes it feel like nothing existed before that.
Yeah, like everything before the Blue Jays is just background noise, or doesn't count.
But that's not true, bro. Not even close, because there's a whole version of Toronto baseball that happened decades earlier that almost nobody talks about.
And not just random teams or small leagues. You're talking about games that actually mattered.
Yeah, two games in particular that would later be recognized as Major League Baseball.
Wait, in Toronto? Before the Blue Jays?
Exactly.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't until you start digging into it.
All right, I'm in. Today we're talking about two baseball games that happened in Toronto, but somehow never made it into the city's history. And we've got a great guest to help tell the story. I'm Adam Weiser.
And I'm Grayson Miller.
This
is Muddy York.
Throughout this episode, we will be posting audio clips from Harvey Sahker, author of Before the Blue Jays, about the earlier history of Toronto and Torontonians with baseball.
Toronto got its first professional team in the mid-1880s, but there were visits from American professional teams in Toronto going back almost to Confederation.
So, like Harvey said, organized baseball in Toronto goes all the way back to the 1860s. Toronto's first professional team began in 1885, but professional teams from the United States, including some who played at the highest level, regularly played exhibition games against local teams, usually resulting in lopsided blowouts for the visitors. However, like we said, these were exhibition matches. They didn't count. So if Toronto's first Major League game wasn't opening day in 1977, when did it happen? Here's Harvey to explain.
In 1932, there was a Negro League called the East-West League. It lasted for only one season. Fast forward to 2020, late that year, and Major League Baseball decided that they were going to include various Negro leagues as quote-unquote Major League, and that included the 1932 East-West League. The 1932 East-West League regular season game was played in Toronto, and that, I believe, is the de facto beginning of a regular season Major League Baseball in the city of Toronto.
As he mentioned, in 2020, Major League Baseball officially recognized the Negro Leagues as major leagues, which means that a regular season game from the East-West League would now be considered a major league game, like the one played at Maple Leaf Stadium on June 18, 1932, between the Cuban Stars and the Homestead Grays. The Homestead Grays are one of the most iconic Negro League teams of all time, while the Cuban Stars were strictly a touring team, meaning that they had no home stadium. Only about 100 people turned out to watch the Stars win 5-2, and only one newspaper even mentioned the game. To give you some quick background about the Negro Leagues.
There were two main Negro Leagues that are now regarded as major league. One was the Negro American League, the other was the Negro National League. If you go on to a main baseball stats website like baseballreference.com and type in a name of a famous Negro League player, say pitcher Satchel Paige, who's a legend in baseball, if you look at his numbers, you'll see that wins, losses, all of the pitching stats for his years with Major League Negro League teams are included. They've been integrated with his segregated major leagues. In other words, you'll see stats for him with the Indianapolis Clowns, who are a Negro League team. You'll see stats for him for the Cleveland Indians because that's who he pitched for in the major leagues, and a host of other clubs as well.
So, Negro League players and Negro League games are now considered on par with the American and National Leagues. And that's what makes sense when you look at the playing careers of Negro League players who moved through the majors. People like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and Ernie Banks.
That wasn't the only Major League game in Toronto before 1977. A second Negro League game was played on July 5th, 1948.
Yes, it was a game between the Cleveland Buckeyes and the Indianapolis Clowns. Two of the players on the Buckeyes went on to have long integrated major league careers. One of them was Al Smith, who was a left fielder, mostly with the Indians and the White Sox. San Jethro is the best example of a player from that 1948 game who had a significant Major League Baseball career. That was with the Boston Braves. He was Rookie of the Year in the National League in 1950. He played for just a few years in the majors. He was already in his early 30s when he won the Rookie of the Year award.
Unlike the first game, this game drew 3,961 fans, which was a very respectable crowd for a weekday game. The Cleveland Buckeyes had been league champions 3 years earlier, and the Indianapolis Clowns were known as the Globetrotters of baseball, who combined high-level baseball, comedy routines, and crowd interactions to draw people to games.
It was not unusual for the Clowns to live up to their name. One of their players was a fellow by the name of Goose Tatum, who was a member of the Harlem Globetrotters as well. So he was well used to clowning around. There were a couple of full-time clowns who were not members of the baseball team, but they were in the dugout and they were around for the festivities. One of them was a little person by the name of Spec Bebop, and he was there strictly for the sake of comic relief.
Jackie Robinson, who was himself a former Negro Leaguer, would also play in Toronto during this period.
Jackie Robinson was a regular visitor to Toronto in the season that he played for the Montreal Royals of the International League, because Toronto was in that league as well. And there were 8 teams in the league. They played a balanced schedule, 154 games. So they played each other 22 times, 11 times at home, 11 times away. Robinson played 11 games in Toronto, hit well over 300 in those games. And when he made his Toronto debut, well, his debut in Toronto was, I don't know, they may have started on the road against them. A bunch of African Americans came up from Detroit to see him play.
These games and Robinson's experience in Montreal helped lay the foundation for Major League integration the following year.
We'd like to thank Harvey for speaking with us. If you'd like to learn more about Toronto baseball history, Before the Blue Jays is available at most bookstores. We hope you enjoy opening day and play ball.
And guys, that's the episode. So if you want to keep following us, you love stories like this, make sure you give us a 5-star review. Tell your friends, because this is how people find out about great Toronto history and share this podcast. If you want to start interacting with us in the online world, you can find us. We're on the visual platforms. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. It's at Muddy York. There's 2 Y's in the middle, at Muddy York Podcast. And if you want to reach out to us, it's muddy_york@outlook.com. You can shoot us an email. Again, thank you so much for listening. Always keep up the history and shoot us a message. Guys, we're getting a lot of messages from people telling us what type of episodes they want to hear. We love it. So keep them coming. And as always, stay classy, Toronto.